In 1933, a French archaeologist stumbled across something impossible deep in the Algerian desert. Carved into rock faces where no life could survive, he found detailed images of elephants, giraffes and hippos. But these weren't ancient fantasies or mythological beasts. These were documentary records of a world that shouldn't exist, a world where the Sahara Desert was a paradise more lush than the Amazon rainforest. The establishment dismissed his findings for decades. They were wrong. Just 11,000 years ago, the world's largest hot desert was a verdant paradise that would make the Amazon envious. What you're about to discover will fundamentally change how you see our planet's capacity for transformation, and perhaps make you question everything you thought you knew about climate and human civilization. The year is 9000 BCE. While our ancestors in Europe are still emerging from the Ice Age, Africa is experiencing what scientists now call the African Humid period, a climatic miracle that lasted for nearly 6,000 years. Paleoclimate and archaeological evidence tells us that 5,000 years ago, the Earth's slow orbital wobble transformed today's Sahara Desert to a land covered with vegetation and lakes. This wasn't a small change. About 3.5 million square miles, 9 million square kilometers of northern Africa turned green, drawing in animals such as elephants and aurochs, wild ancestors of cattle. But how do we know this remarkable transformation actually happened? The evidence is written in stone, quite literally. Deep in the Tassili Naja mountains of Algeria, ancient artists left us a gift that would take thousands of years to understand. Rock art images do not depict the arid, barren landscape that is present today. Instead, they portray a vibrant savannah inhabited by elephants, giraffes, rhinos and hippos. These aren't the fantasies of ancient imaginations. They're documentary evidence carved in stone, showing us a world that existed when our ancestors walked this Green Sahara. The science behind this transformation reads like something from a cosmic clockwork. The African Humid period was a direct result of African monsoonal climate responses to periodic variations in the Earth's orbit around the Sun that recur roughly every 20,000 years. Our planet wobbles on its axis like a spinning top slowing down, and this wobble, called precession, dramatically affects how solar energy hits different parts of Earth. When the wobble positioned the northern hemisphere to receive more intense summer sunlight, it supercharged the African monsoon system. The results were spectacular. Where today you would die of thirst, ancient peoples navigated vast freshwater lakes. There is widespread evidence that the Sahara was periodically vegetated in the past, with the proliferation of rivers, lakes and water-dependent animals such as hippos. Imagine hippos lounging in Saharan waters where now only sand stretches to every horizon. Picture crocodiles sunning themselves on riverbanks where today's travelers would give anything for a single drop of water. This Green Sahara supported human civilizations that were only beginning to understand. Fishing communities thrived along shorelines of lakes that rivaled the Great Lakes of North America. Pastoral societies herded cattle across grasslands that provided abundant forage year-round. These weren't nomadic people scratching out a survival existence. They were sophisticated societies living in an African Eden, developing technologies, creating art and building communities that would influence the course of human history. But this paradise carried within it the seeds of its own destruction. Beginning 8,000 years ago, the moisture balance shifted due to changing orbital precession and vegetation feedbacks. As Earth's orbital wobble continued its celestial dance, the intense summer heating that drove the monsoons began to weaken. The rains became less reliable. Rivers that had flowed for millennia began to diminish. Lakes that had sustained countless generations started to shrink. What happened next reveals something profound about the delicate balance between climate, vegetation, and human activity. Some scientists now believe humans themselves may have accelerated the transformation from green oasis to barren desert. As the rains decreased, pastoral peoples may have increased their reliance on cattle and goats. These animals, in their search for the dwindling vegetation, could have stripped away the plant cover that helped maintain the regional climate. When the vegetation disappeared, so did its ability to retain moisture and moderate temperatures. The land that had nurtured these communities for thousands of years began to turn against them. The collapse wasn't gradual. Some proxy records indicate a rapid transition from green paradise to harsh desert, possibly occurring over just a few centuries. Imagine the desperation of peoples watching their lakes evaporate, their rivers disappear, and their grasslands transform into endless sand. This climate catastrophe triggered one of history's greatest migrations. Populations that had thrived in the Green Sahara were forced to seek refuge along the Nile River Valley, contributing to the rise of ancient Egyptian civilization. Others moved south toward the Niger River, helping establish the great trading empires of West Africa. The story becomes even more remarkable when you realize this cycle of greening and drying isn't unique. The AHP is just the most recent of hundreds of earlier such periods stretching back millions of years. Climate scientists used models to show historic intervals of a green, vegetated Sahara Desert that occur every 21,000 years. The Sahara has been playing this cosmic game of transformation for eons, alternately blooming into paradise and withering into wasteland with the regularity of celestial clockwork. Today, as we face our own climate challenges, the Green Sahara offers both warning and hope. It warns us that even the most stable-seeming environments can change dramatically and rapidly, but it also suggests that our planet possesses an almost miraculous capacity for renewal. In fact, the desert has shown a greener image over the last 15 years. Increasing temperatures lead to a stronger evaporation over the sea. Said condensations rain down onto dry land. Some scientists believe that current climate change could potentially trigger another greening of the Sahara, though the timeline and extent remain uncertain. The next time you see images of the Sahara's endless dunes, remember that you're looking at a landscape in costume, wearing the temporary mask of aridity. Beneath those sands lie the fossils of hippos and the remnants of ancient lakes. Above those dunes, the same stars that guided boats across Saharan waters now watch over camel caravans. The Green Sahara reminds us that on our restless planet, nothing remains unchanged forever. What seems permanent is often just a pause between transformations. And in that truth lies both the fragility and the resilience of the world we call home. The desert that once was paradise may yet bloom again. Earth keeps its own schedule, and humanity is still learning to read its calendar. Thanks for watching. This is the Griot Chronicles. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment.